Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and I'm continuing my series that categorizes fishing persons' types and how retailers market to each. And just as a recap, we looked at the average angler, and that was kind of interesting because nobody is an average angler and nobody should be targeted for retail that way. But then we looked at the traditionalist, and the traditionalist as a subject of a retailer is probably the one they want. They spend the most time on the water, whether it's fresh water or salt water. They spend the most in terms of any of the segments within retail. They are typically looking for the higher end equipment. They generally have a rating, a self-rating that says they are at a minimum an intermediate angler, and most of the time either above average or an expert angler in that regard. And their fishing habits take them on the water, the vast majority, over 50 days a year, or just over 2 times or 4 times a month, once a week, as an average. And many of them kind of take it as a lifestyle. They're very much involved in conservation and preservation. They certainly seek out education. They want to learn about the art of fishing, but also about fish in general. And they spend a lot of time consumed with the hobby or the sport. Well, today we're going to look at the occasional angler. That's another one of the subsets that are classified in the study. I've referenced the study before. It was done for American Sport Fishing Association. They're down in Florida. The consultants that did this is a group called Southwick Associates. I believe the head principal is Rob Southwick, and he presented an article in Fishing Retailer News, which kind of went through who these folks are. They call them personas. I'm calling them profiles, and sort of hints to how do you sell to these folks? What would you target them for? And what kind of things put them in that particular categorization. Well, as you see laid out in front of me now, I think we have the answer to who purchases rod and reel combinations from Walmart or Target or any of the mass retailers, if you will, or kind of the general retailers. And we'll get into this now. So who is an occasional angler? Well, by its nature, interestingly enough, it would say that they only go out on occasion, right? That's sort of defining the word with the word itself, right? But 1 in 9 people who took the survey categorized themselves as an occasional angler. And they're basically happy with the sporadic participation. These aren't the folks that you're going to find bass fishing on a cold November day on a lake or in the early springtime. Generally, they'll be kind of limited to the warm weather and other comfortable ways to be. And their folks, as a demographic, are generally younger than the ones that we introduced, either the average or the traditional one. By source of the survey itself, they average about 41 years old. The rest, for the most part, other than where they purchase their goods, are pretty much the same. They have about 50% of them prefer to purchase at an outdoor specialty shop or a general retailer. So read Walmart, Bass Pro, Cabela's, Dick's, Academy, those kinds of folks. And most of them, a high majority of them, over 70%, would categorize themselves as beginner, novice, or intermediate. And at the beginner level, that's one quarter, and novice is 1/4, and the intermediate just a little bit more. But very few consider themselves advanced or expert. So you would think if you're selling into this group that you have a great opportunity to introduce them to the sport, to provide information on the equipment, to kind of help guide them to learn a little bit more. But that's kind of not within their motivations. So when you look at the motivations as to why these folks are out there fishing, the first one usually is to just kind of learn something new. Okay, well, if you're a seller, that's a good thing, right? Fascinated by fishing, so they've either seen something on television or read something in a magazine, or maybe they were on vacation and saw a lot of folks out in the surf or on the boats, or maybe perhaps on a charter, or maybe they were even introduced to it through a business colleague who just kind of put the event together. And then they're really categorized by the thrill or the challenge. So it's almost as if they watched something on the television, saw some big fish getting landed, say, geez, I would like to do something like that, and kind of started booking a trip or two or three to catch big fish and to catch a lot of fish. That's kind of what has them motivated. Fully 2/3 of the folks were introduced to fishing by a family member, and another 15%, so almost 80% of the folks were either introduced by a family member or a friend. And the first one that they generally went fishing with was a parent or a grandparent or another family member. Well, again, overwhelming majority, 7 out of 10. So when asked, do you expect to go fishing in the next year, the answer was about 75% said yes. When asked about their motivation, what was going to be the reason why they wanted to do that, the first and foremost was enjoying the outdoors. The second one was having a relaxing time, and then the third one was spending time with friends and family. So if you're a retailer or a reseller, chances are that's not very motivational to you in terms of what they're out there doing. Interestingly enough, the display that I have here is sort of the stuff that they would be interested in buying. They're the ones that are buying the rod and reel combination, if they're buying a rod and reel at all. They're the ones that are largely fishing with bait. Now I've got plastic baits here, but they'll use either plastic or live baits, and that's what was represented by the fish hooks here. They're much more about the bait fishing than they are about something that's involved with techniques. And for the most part, you won't find them doing things like trolling or that unless they're on some kind of organized trip or activity where that's done. But generally, they like to fish alone. They like to just get out in the outdoors and kind of have a good time, whether it's with or without family. If you ask for what's competing for their time, the interesting thing here, if you remember the traditionalist, about 1/3 said nothing's competing with my time, nothing's stopping me, and most of the other ones were relatively low in terms of competition. Well, in this case, since it is a younger demographic, family obligations and work obligations have clearly the largest impact on their ability to go somewhere, and also, interestingly enough, relaxing at home, whether it's television or reading or whatever, is probably the top competitor for the time. So this is more about how do you spend your downtime than it is going fishing for the sake of fishing. And when asked what stopped them from going in the last year, it was weather, followed by the wrong fishing equipment, or didn't have the right fishing equipment, followed by money, interestingly enough. So this was an economic impact there as well. And then what would get them to go fishing more was an invitation from a friend or family member, followed by learning more about how to fish. So there is some opportunities there that you might see as they target folks that, if you put on a fishing clinic, if you, like iFish, I think is the one, if I remember, teaches families how to fish. Those are the kinds of things that would pull more people in. But then, interestingly enough, only 4 in 10 anglers went fishing last year in this group. So occasional, as defined by terms of the years, it's very low, right? And interestingly enough, over 40% of the folks have not gone fishing in 4 or more years. So if you're a retailer, you're really not selling to this group, this profile at all. And when asked how many people went fishing within the past year, almost every one of them was under 31 days. So that kind of makes sense as well. It matches the demographic. Most of the folks are freshwater fishing. Most of them, unlike the others, fish with live bait. Targeted species in freshwater is bass, followed by catfish. And in the even though there's multiple species in the saltwater profile, It's the fighting fish. It's bluefish, it's striped bass, it's grouper or snapper, and then there's some that's kind of the inland varieties like the flounders and scup and the like. And then finally, the thing that's important to retail is how much did this demographic spend in the last year? Well, only 50%, just over 53%, spent anything in the last year, and less than the target of what they spent was less than $250. So that's 50% or more spent less than $250. Well, what did they buy? Those that spent, about half of them bought a rod, half of them bought a reel, and about 1/3 of them, evidenced by the combo, bought a rod and reel combo. When you looked at what they bought other than that, it was fishing line. Almost everybody bought fishing line, and everybody bought bait or lures. 2/3 at least, I'm saying everybody. And then finally, where did they purchase their equipment? Well, we talked a little bit about that before. General sporting goods stores, mass merchants like Walmart and Sam's Club, and outdoor specialty shops like Bass Pro and Cabela's. So I ask you again, are you the occasional angler? If you are, it's kind of interesting to have you on my site, and I really do appreciate that. The demographic really doesn't spend a lot of time in forums and chat rooms and online blogs and things like this, but thank you for joining us. If you have an interest or a question or a comment about the sport, well, I always try to answer them, and if you leave them in the comment section, I'll be happy to kind of guide you along with that. And maybe you're thinking about something that you haven't done in a while, and you got a reel that's not working properly, and you want to learn how to repair it, or maybe you've even taken it apart to do a service with it and haven't been successful with it. Well, I'll try and help you out there as well. I'll try to guide you along. I've done an awful lot of videos in my library, and I would be happy to guide you in terms of how to get that reel back out there fishing. So I guess in this situation, Second Chance, my business, Second Chance Tackle, is not just about getting that rod and reel working again, but maybe it's about getting you to give fishing a second chance. So that's the occasional angler profile. But if you don't see yourself in that, that's okay. There's 5 more profiles that I'll be reviewing as part of this. I hope you're enjoying it. I hope you stay tuned for them. I hope you subscribe. If you subscribe, hit the notification button. But if you subscribe, you won't miss any of these episodes. And I'm enjoying them, and I'm enjoying presenting them to you. And I hope that you're enjoying these as well. So, occasional angler, average angler, traditional angler, what else could there be? Well, stay tuned and you'll learn more. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Thank you for watching.